welcome back to the American Experiment Podcast. My name is Grace Keating. As always, I'm here with Catherine Hindrocker. How are you doing today, Catherine?
I'm good. I'm doing well. I feel like there's a lot going on, I recently moved. I am getting married soon.
Very busy life right now.
In my head, everything is just a little scattered, but good. All good things.
Now you get to come here and hear, I promise, only positive stories. Only things that inspire confidence in the state of our great state of Minnesota.
And I don't think we included that there is going to be a tax. Walz has proposed a tax hike in Carver County. Is that right? And I specifically, we, looked in this kind of area of like Hennepin, edge of Hennepin County into Carver County, and eventually went with Carver County sort of for some of the tax benefits and just general benefits of not being in Hennepin County.
Yeah.
They're following us with their nonsense. So
it's all the stupid liberals moving out there from the cities.
Escape.
Stay out of there.
Stay out.
Stay out of Carver County, please.
Leave me alone.
Leave us alone. Oh my gosh. Okay. Let's just jump on in. We've got a lot of content today. First story. This is from CBS, WCCO. Minnesota proposal would impose tax on social media platforms based on number of users. Just when you thought that they were taxing everything that they could. They came out with social media. Yeah.
Wow. So like Facebook, Twitter.
Yeah.
TikTok.
Yeah. It's all based on the number of users. So large companies with over 1 million users would pay, are you ready for this? Are you ready? $165,000 a month.
Whoa!
Plus 50 cents per person on the sites. Which is kind of hilarious because don't all of these social media sites have a huge problem with bot activity? Like Facebook deleted 1 billion bot accounts or something.
Right, looking at
that.
X, that was one of Elon's main sticking points when he was buying Twitter, now X. I'm not going to pay per person because there's so many bots. So many people are not real.
Yeah.
So he thought their price was certainly inflated. And that's going to be an argument I would think all of those social media companies would have with the state of Minnesota. Is that something they want to get into? Oh, and look, it says too, it looks like this was a guy representing, the anti, but he says this could lead companies to scale back free or widely used services like Gmail, Google Maps, YouTube, and Facebook, tools Minnesotans rely on every day for connection work and community engagement.
Yeah. I mean, that's the problem with these companies that are offering, a free service. You don't have to pay to use Facebook. You don't have to pay to create an email with Gmail. And if you are not paying for a product, that means that you're the product. That's what people say. They are profiting off of your data, and I'm fine with that. If I'm using your service for free, I kind of expect that you're going to be profiting off of me somehow. I really don't have a problem with this personally.
I think
someone else did though.
There could be guardrails on what kind of data they're allowed to take.
Oh, sure.
Some websites will track what you're doing when you're not on the website.
Yeah, that's
I feel
creepy.
Like that's pretty creepy.
Please stop.
But if I'm looking at certain videos on Facebook, that's something I would never do. But if I am, I don't mind if they, then send me more of those videos of dogs.
Yeah,
whatever,
sure. Yeah, sure.
But the thing that's just so silly is the idea that, read the quote from Aisha Gomez, the author of this bill.
Aisha Gomez, DFL, Minneapolis, says nobody is providing these ostensibly free services out of the kindness of their little billionaire hearts. They're doing so because they're making a lot of money doing it. She is the co-chair of the House Taxes Committee. These companies generate billions of dollars through ad sales, yes, but increasingly through data mining, tracking every little thing each of us are doing when we're on the internet. They're doing this because they're making money? Am I missing something here?
I just like the dream that you're only going to tax the billionaires, the little billionaire hearts. You're only going to tax those people, and that the consumer is never going to see that tax fall onto them is absurd. Of course it is. We're either going to lose services from these social media places because it's not worth it to them anymore, or the tax is going to fall back on consumers and we're going to end up paying for services that we use every day, like Gmail or whatever.
Or Google Maps. Like if I start paying for Google Maps, I'm going to have some very unkind words for Aisha Gomez.
I will say Apple superior.
Oh yeah, no, I personally prefer Apple Maps, and I get made fun of a lot for that.
I feel like that's for some reason a hot take, but I don't know. I like Apple much better.
Well, and this just represents the entire liberal ideology of tax the rich, tax the businesses. And you're right. It completely ignores the reality of even if we are not, going to be paying for these services, the services are going to decline in quality too. They're going to start restricting what we can access, or it's going to be a worse product because they do have to make money somehow to keep these things running that we're using for free.
Yeah, and it reminds me of the fight they just went through with Uber and Lyft, trying to increase what they had to pay their drivers. It's, I think a noble idea, but what's going to happen is they're not going to have their services here anymore. And so they got in a huge fight with big corporations. And well, it's good to regulate those sometimes to some degree, maybe on, what data they can mine from us. I don't hate that. But to just tax them outright, it's going to make things so much worse for the consumer and the people who use these services every day.
Yeah. Let's move on. Minnesota's sick tax, writes Matt Dean.
More taxes.
More taxes. Big week, guys.
I'm sensing a theme.
Minnesota's sick tax would go up 11% under DFL budget. A Minnesota State senator from Bloomington has proposed an 11% increase in the state's sick tax. Didn't know this would exist. This is Melissa Wickland. DFL. This would hit all dental and medical patients. Every service and product paid for by health services, from teeth cleaning to pacemakers, would see an increase. And she added this to the omnibus bill without hearing any testimony on it. I wonder why. Why could that be? Would it have been maybe negative testimony had they opened it up?
I would hope so. It's so crazy. I had the same thing. I didn't know that this existed, this sick tax. So I dove into the history a little bit here, thanks to Matt Dean for his assistance on this. But the sick tax began more than 30 years ago and was a way to pay for Minnesota Care. The program was for low-income Minnesotans who did not qualify for Medicaid. And basically, both Republicans and Democrats have benefited from having this fund they call it the Healthcare Access Fund, which is fed by the sick tax. And it is basically a slush fund that this money goes into that is separate from the general fund. So spending from it doesn't have to conform with the balance of expenditures and revenues. There's no restriction whatsoever on the funds. So they will just use this to plug holes in their regular budget. They'll just send the money over to the general fund when they have spent too much of our taxpayer money. So this is such a crazy way for them to just have this, Matt Dean was calling it kind of like a rich kid overdraft protection, like if you're spending too much and then they just bump it over. This is also the fund that they use to pay for healthcare for illegal immigrants.
Oh,
Fun
nice.
fact. Yes.
Nice.
So that's something the House Republicans I saw were talking about this week is it's apparently a sticking point in their budget negotiations with the Democrats. The Democrats do not want to cut the health care for illegal immigrants. And the Republicans do. That's what they're claiming anyway from these negotiations. And this is where that money comes from. So I don't know if there's a correlation between the fact that she now wants to raise this tax,
which then funds that healthcare for illegal immigrants, right?
Exactly. When we saw that the demand for that healthcare from illegal immigrants has been way higher than they ever predicted. Shocker. If you offer free services, people might take you up on it.
This is such a failure of state government. This tax was created to help fund healthcare for low-income Minnesotans. And the need for that went away. It was being funded by something else, and the money kept coming, and now it's being spent on healthcare for illegal immigrants. It's so disappointing to hear too that this was. People have tried to take this fund away before, and both sides have fought to keep it because it's this pit of money. I've heard state governments really like that stuff, and it's so disappointing. If I was governor for a day, this would be one of the things I would kill personally.
Yeah, really. It also has a lot of huge gaps where they allow that seem to allow for fraud. Okay, like they say, for example, take the illegal immigrant health care. They say in that bill from 2023 that they will not verify your illegal status. They will not. Don't worry. So
how could you anyway?
would think, I don't know, but wouldn't you do a check? See, I don't know. There are so many.
What
I know, but what do you get? So anyone can go and say, I am an illegal immigrant. There's no way to validate this. There's no way to check this. And they won't. They say they will not give me free healthcare.
Yeah. So will you be applying for this as an illegal immigrant?
It would save the organization money, right? I don't know. Should we all see what happens? I've learned through this podcast, a lot of ways to potentially do fraud if you so want.
And we don't advocate any of them for legal reasons. Don't do it.
But who knew there were so many options? So anyway, another potential huge increase to our fraud tracker in the future. Bill Blum, keep your eyes on that.
Stay tuned. Let's move on. Once again, this came from Crime Watch Minnesota originally, posted on Alpha News. A Minnesota state employee. This story has so many twists and turns. Minnesota state employee arrested on suspicion of damaging multiple Tesla vehicles. The damage to the 6 vehicles amounted to about $21,000. And each of the 6 incidents amounted to felony damage to property. And has he been charged?
No.
No, he has not.
Mary Moriarty is refusing to charge him. After the Minneapolis Police Department went through all of this work, they investigated, because there was all these Tesla vandalisms that happened, right, in response to people hating Elon Musk. Mm-hmm. And they were able to identify someone who, yes, committed 6 of these crimes. That's like a lot of money
level,
in damage. And they got him on video because Teslas are like completely tricked out with video, right? So if you're going to vandalize a car, oh my God, I can't imagine
pick a better one.
A worse car. But anyway, if you're watching, we'll roll the video from YouTube that the Minneapolis police put out of this guy vandalizing the Tesla. Yeah, so here he is. He actually vandalized it on the back too. And then he walks around to the side and he's keying this Tesla just very clearly.
I wonder what he's I didn't see. What is he writing?
No, I don't know.
Probably like a swastika or something.
I love how it's bright
based on what
daylight
other people have done. Oh yeah, he's just like walking his dog. And that's why I don't go to downtown Minneapolis. My car's going to get not that I own a Tesla. My car's going to get vandalized and Mary Moriarty isn't going to charge him.
It's so crazy. And the Minneapolis police, the police chief basically came out and said, it's frustrating. Here's the exact quote. Our investigators are always frustrated when the cases they poured their hearts into are declined. In my experience, the victims in these cases often feel the same.
One would think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also looked into, because they say they're going to, they use this word that they're like diverting him to, adult diversion solutions. That's what it's called. I was like, what does that mean? Here are some of those options. About diversion solutions, they can be education that is targeted to prevent future offenses. Education. Against vandalism, against Teslas. If you didn't already know that was bad. Full and timely restitution to victims. I guess that's
sounds
good.
Nice. Okay.
Advisory services to aid and monitor progress. Did he stop vandalizing? And then support that focuses on reducing recidivism and building safer communities. I don't know, but I feel like if you just stuck this guy in jail for a couple of weeks, we probably solve the problem.
I feel like, why choose? I feel like you could put him in jail and also do all those things.
Educate him on not vandalizing.
I don't know. There's also this really funny angle that so he's a state employee, and one of the clips from the Tesla that show him, vandalizing it was taken on a Monday, March 24th, after 2 p.m. When most people would be working.
He was on the clock.
He was out of
the taxpayers were paying his salary, and he was vandalizing Teslas. That's hilarious. And he has his well, I guess we don't know that one was from 2 o'clock, but he's just roaming around with his dog. I don't know.
Yeah,
which is also hilarious. Working from home over there in the government. Probably
they'd have to be, right? Didn't they?
I think so.
Yeah, they're not fully back. I know that.
No.
What a great state
Every
we
week
live
on this
in. podcast,
I find a new career maybe I should try out, one in government, or a new fraud scheme I should consider.
It's very educational.
Very
educational. A lot of backup plans get formed here.
All right, Grace, what is our last story?
Our final story is my favorite because I think it's our funniest. Written by Tom Stewart. Glitches postpone launch of DNR licensing app before fishing opener. Catherine, do you fish? Do you have a fishing license?
God, no. I do not. I've been fishing a couple times, but I need the full service, someone else doing everything, So I'm either my dad or my brother is there and they're doing the worm hook. I drop it in. And then if I happen to get a fish, I bring it over to them, and they take it off. And then, so it's just not, I've been fishing, but not really.
I think we're in sync on this. Yeah. I went once when I was 6 and I was like, yeah, that's enough.
Right.
Never done it since. Well, the Tom Stewart writes, The list of highly promoted rollouts of state government websites that have crashed and burned over the years runs long. This is a fun walk down memory lane. The disastrous 2013 MNsure website debut cost the executive director her job, following backlash against the years late $100 million over budget MNlar's system. And then last year's meltdown within minutes of going live of the Department of Revenue website to give away, do you remember this? To give away taxpayer-funded e-bikes. So that's our illustrious history with, Minnesota state government-run website launches. Now, this was going to be a DNR licensing app that they assured everyone was going to be up and running before the 2025 fishing opener, which is just around the corner. And it's so weird. Somehow it's not ready and won't be, it sounds like, for quite some time. At this point, they're saying maybe it'll happen this year. Maybe it'll happen in 2025. Maybe in time for the deer opener. Oh
my God.
And they're not really saying why either.
This is so funny to me. This is so freaking funny. Like, you still need to go get a paper little doodad that says you can fish.
Yeah.
You need to go
to be fair, this was trying to address that. I mean, I do respect their attempt to kind of modernize the DNR licensing system. It was going to be digital. Awful attempt. That's fair. They have been working on this $3.5 million project since 2021. And there's all these different, IT services and a private vendor involved. And March 4th was the deadline. And it's April 21st, and it is not up yet. So it sounds like rather than dealing with sort of an embarrassing, unfunctional launch, they decided to just push back the date and hopefully have it up and running and ready before it actually launches, which is just hilarious. And they won't say why. There's no really concrete explanation.
They spent $3.5 million trying to put together a website? That's insane.
I don't think that's what that cost. I don't know. I think
I have friends that'll just slap one up for them that I'm sure would work better. That is so crazy. This is such a good example of some of the golden turkey things we do, where it's if you really audit the government and how they're spending their money, you'll find examples of wait, they paid $2,000 for one hammer or whatever, that's there's always good examples. Yeah. And this is just another one. I don't know. I'm sorry to the fishers. I feel like you shouldn't be having to go in line and wait for your little paper pass to just grab some fish from the lakes, but
oh my gosh, maybe someday we'll have a smooth web or app launch from the state of Minnesota. But in the meantime, more proof that we just can't do it for some reason.
Yeah, they can't get anything done. I don't understand. Everything always fails.
Gosh, anything we missed this week?
Well, there was a lot of talk about in the House about the illegal immigrant funded healthcare. Saw a lot of things going around about that. I don't know. What else? Otherwise, I think those are the top stories.
Yeah. Oh, tune in this Friday at noon. Bill Glahn is doing another Feeding Our Future update webinar. If you've been living under a rock or you missed last week's episode, we talked about it a little bit, but Keith Ellison had some audio recordings leaked that tie him pretty closely to the Feeding Our Future scandal. So in this 1 hour free webinar, Bill Glahn is going to go over those audio recordings and literally do I think a mini stop the tape and say, explaining who's talking, what does this mean? I'm really excited about it. I'm going to tune in. So
yeah, it's got such good, the story arc going on here is so good. It's a he said, she said, but we've got the recordings now. So it's very interesting, and how Keith Ellison attempts to defend himself is fascinating.
Yeah. We're going to wrap up today's episode with a fun little surprise segment. So we'll kick it over to that in just a second. But please remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, turn on notifications, do all the things to help us reach more people, and drop us a comment. We love reading them.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for listening. I'm excited. I think you'll enjoy our next segment. It is something we talked about last week, which is a citizen lobbyist friend of ours who we brought in studio. So enjoy and have a nice week.
American Experiment is supported by thousands of individuals like you. To join the movement, go to www.americanexperiment.org and click the yellow donate button. From all of us here, thank you.
All right, I'm so excited for this segment today because we have a special guest in studio with us. It's David Cubes, who we shouted out on our last episode. He had an incredible testimony on pensions. Something I knew almost nothing about before the episode last week.
But that you're going to learn about today.
Sure, exactly. Mm-hmm. And we brought him in studio let's start with telling us a little bit about yourself. David, how did you get started doing this? And how many times have you testified in front of the legislature?
My last testimony was a few years ago at the LCPR committee. And
acronym is LCPR, Legislative Commission on
Pensions
and
Retirement.
Requirements. Okay, LCPR.
And I had 3 minutes there, and I'd done my studying, but I wanted to leave them what I thought is that what was going on there, what they've been doing is slow motion white collar crime. And I honestly believe that. And it's been going in slow motion, meaning it's been going on for decades. It just keeps getting worse and worse.
But let's get at sort of who you are, because we just randomly I watched that hearing and we wanted to do some reporting on that here. And then you got a hearing in front of this Pensions Commission, and you've got testifier after testifier, and this is normal at the legislature. Everybody who testifies has an interest, a paid interest, most of them. They're lobbyists, and it's fine. It's the way the system works. It's great. The group of, coin collectors gets together. They want to have an issue with the legislature. They hire a lobbyist. He goes down there. It's organized. It's good. But mostly what the legislators hear from are people with a vested interest and are paid to advocate. It's fine. And then all of a sudden a citizen pops up. And I think you even said this at one point. You said, I just represent the taxpayers. I'm not being paid by anybody here. So we were like, wow, that's incredible. So you're where are you at? Like, what did you do for a living? And then how did you, what got your interest into like pensions, for instance? And then kind of how did that get you to the legislature?
Dave Cubes, St. Paul resident for my whole life, basically. And I realized at an early time that Minnesota is a very outlier, bizarre kind of state through some experiences that I told you a little bit about, and pensions is no different. So when I retired, somehow I decided to start digging into it. I spent hundreds of hours. I got a website.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah. And it was totally ignored by everybody because I don't know what I'm doing, but some media lady talked me into it, and I lost some money and she made some money, and that was the end of that.
Vendors.
Yep.
But I was determined to realize there's two sides to this story. And the Minnesota government side and union side is just extreme and really weird. And I was so distraught about it that I kept going, I got to try to do something.
So you go to the legislature, even just last week, you show up, obviously you can go online and find the committees that are hearing this bill to change the pension system, to make it better, arguably for teachers. And then we can get it. We don't have to get into the tier 1, tier 2, that stuff. We kind of did that last week, but she's going to lose us. She's going to get bored really fast. And it's a good indicator of our audience. We'll get bored really fast too. But anyway, you show up and you what do you have to sign up to testify? You have to call in advance. How does that all work?
You got to let them know a couple days before. Give them your email and phone number and this and that. Lisa, somebody or other.
Probably a committee administrator or some staffer that does that. Yep.
Right. It's very formalized, and I understand that. That's fine. I knew I was going to be up against it.
Yeah.
I knew that.
But anybody can do it, though. They don't restrict, you don't have to have like a calling card that says I'm a paid lobbyist.
You just have 2 minutes. I actually got 2.5.
Everybody gets
That's awesome.
The 2 minute
it's something
time
I
limit.
think more people should look into, how to be involved, because in all these committees you see tons of people testify and they're never representing the taxpayer. It's like American Experiment. We go and we do that, but anyone can do that. That's, I think, such a key thing I'd like our audience to know. If you're looking for ways to get more involved, absolutely, you can do it 100%. It's worth it.
Yeah, and a little bit of research. Obviously, you've done a lot of research on a particular issue, like a pension issue, but legislators just need to hear from people who will be affected by this. And sometimes the only effect that we might feel we have to pay the taxes on it. Right. I think at one point you said I'm a taxpayer representing, because everything, the pension issue, for instance, but a lot of the spending stuff, obviously, it's taxes. So I have no interest except that I'm paying for this.
Exactly. And I know that a lot of these people are getting a lot better pensions than the people who are paying for their pensions. And
well, let's get into that a little bit too, because we got a pension expert here. So can we geek out on pensions a little bit? All right.
I'll start a timer.
Okay, start a timer. So let's just do pensions 101. And one of the points you made in the committee hearing we talked about last week is a defined contribution versus defined benefit. I mean, if we could understand one thing out of pensions today, just the difference between the two types of pensions, and maybe a little bit of history in that and the evolution of that. But most of us are defined contribution now, right? And that was kind of one of the points you made at the hearing.
Right. And university professors are on defined contribution. Many states are on defined contribution. And except you don't have to ever use the taxpayer as a backstop.
Yeah. So explain what that means. Defined contribution means what?
You take money out of your salary. Maybe it's tax deferred. Maybe you get a benefit from your boss that matches it or something like that, and then it gets invested. And you can do that every year, and you can build up a very nice pension. But it kind of depends on who's investing it or how well the market's going.
Yeah,
and
so the money's now in the market. It's 401k or, you know.
Right.
So now that, and again, most of us are in that. We're here at American Experiment. We have a defined contribution plan.
Right.
We kick in, the employer kicks in. But you're at the mercy of the market, where it's risk. Risk is involved,
Right.
but it's manageable risk, and you. That's a defined contribution plan.
Correct.
And so my dad worked for Control Data for 20 years before it went under in the 80s. That was a traditional Minnesota company. He has a pension, and that's the defined benefit side. So explain that side then.
Well, defined benefit is you take some out of your salary, you get matched, which gets changed dramatically over time that the other people, including the taxpayer, pitch in, and then it's invested by SBI, and you're guaranteed a wage once you retire based on your high fives.
So let's slow down a little bit. Money set aside, invested by SBI, State Board of Investment.
Right.
And we're talking about state government pensions now.
Right.
If it was a private company, you know, that could be a whole different ball of wax, but similar theory. But so the money is set aside, it's invested by the State Board of Investment. And then, but your benefit then is, like you say, defined, and it's set no matter what the market's doing.
Right. There's a formula that you follow, and it is set. Your average high fives is part of it, your years of service, your multiplier, and you're set until you die. And sometimes your wife dies or something, depends on what you select.
And
Just an amazing.
Some terminology, high five would be if you work for 30 years for the state of Minnesota or as a teacher, then your high five, your 5 years with the highest salary is put a part of a formula to determine what your defined benefit is going to be in perpetuity until you die.
Right.
No matter what's happening in the market.
Exactly.
So you called that a Cadillac plan, you know, kind of philosophically in this hearing because the risk is gone. There's not as much risk like the rest of us watching what's going on even a couple weeks ago when the tariff thing hit and the market crashed and everything went nuts, you know. So we're all watching our 401ks and oh my gosh. But the defined benefit, people are going, I get my $2,800 a month because that's what my high five and my formula says I get.
And then you get your COLA on top of that. It's like too good to be true.
COLA?
And it's just
Coca?
amazing.
COLA, cost of living adjustment. So
inflation, it goes up with inflation
Or something.
Or something, yeah.
Well,
it's unclear.
Yeah, they argue about that a lot.
So government, union employees, a lot of them still with defined benefit plans.
Right. A lot of the defined contribution plans became that or never even did the defined benefit because defined benefit is so expensive. It's so amazingly expensive. And once they retire, you're still paying for 20, 30 years, depending how long they live. Those are huge expenses. And in Minnesota, it winds up falling back on the taxpayer because it's not funded very well. They exaggerate their assets. There's all kinds of reasons why they get themselves in trouble. And it all falls back on the taxpayer. Like the TRA, they're $8 billion in the hole.
TRA acronym? Teacher Retirement Account, I think.
I guess.
Teacher Retirement Account. So that would be the plan set aside money for teachers.
Right.
Okay.
So they're already $8 billion in the hole, and they want to go a few more $100 million in the hole. Big deal. Who's going to pay for it? The taxpayers will, one way or another.
And just to help explain that, when you say $8 billion in the hole, what do you mean? You mean their projections for how many teachers they have retiring and when and what the cost is going to be. They also know how much money is coming in at the beginning, at the current time to cover it.
Well, it's sometimes called pension debt or unfunded liabilities. It's still money you owe that the government doesn't have. They're in debt, and now they're giving away even more. It's just ridiculous.
And none of this would matter to American Experiment or maybe even to you if the taxpayers weren't on the hook for the management of these things, and the plans and the benefits, and then the bailouts.
Right.
And
exactly.
We were talking earlier about. This kind of all started with the MRF, another retirement, Minneapolis Educator Retirement Fund, right? There was the first fund probably in Minnesota to be mismanaged and then go up, get upside down, and then come to the legislature. Minneapolis educators come to so the taxpayers in White Bear Lake and Minnetonka and Bemidji and Duluth we all have to kick in to bail out that thing. And that was kind of the one that maybe got us down this path.
Right. And I got to correct you. It's the first one was Minneapolis employees retirement plan. Then later, the teachers went bankrupt. They both went bankrupt. So we're still paying to the people that took over them. They call it a merger, but it's a bankruptcy. Mm-hmm. They have totally messed it up. It's all human error, too. It's all human error. They could have done things so much different to not be in so much trouble. When they get in trouble, they won't fix it because they like being in trouble because guess who is going to bail them out?
Right.
Good old taxpayers.
And what you had last week and when you were in that room, really the only person testifying against, I mean, it was teacher after teacher after teacher. All of them, I think, with a vested interest. Like, pass this bill because it personally benefits me. Well, that's good. Congratulations.
And they have an emotional plea, but what you don't get to hear is the emotional plea from people who we are in one of the highest tax states. You know, it drains people's, own bank accounts that are paying into the system in Minnesota. So we don't get to hear that side of the emotional plea. We only hear the teachers. And so we just so appreciated that you were there to give your side of things on behalf of us.
I had my 2 minutes planned, but after sitting there for an hour and listening to these teachers cry, I call them crybabies, They moan and moan about how horrible things are. I changed what I wanted to say, and I go, I got to say something to realize how good they've got it. Defined benefit, one of the best top 10, 15% in the nation until they die, and they are, man.
It did flip the narrative in that room that it just was like, like a record screeching, like stop the tape like we did, because you kind of turned around and looked at the audience and said, you guys got a Cadillac plan, I'm sure you had security to get out of that room or not, but
well, I left once I said, because I go, I've heard enough.
Yeah.
I've said my piece and I'm leaving. I've been here for a while.
Well, thank you, Mr. Cubes. We so appreciate you, and hopefully you'll serve as sort of an inspiration for everyone listening. You can be your own David Cubes. Anyone can be you. You can show up and learn about an issue and go represent the taxpayers and testify on behalf of all of us.
Grace, I guess, called me a hero. I could not believe that.
Taxpayer hero.
David Cubes.
You know what? I've not been called a hero ever. They ignore me. They think I'm crazy. You're nuts, Cubes. What are you wasting your time for? Oh, well, my goodness. A hero?
You stood up and now you're here, and this podcast has millions. No, not millions, but this
has
lots of viewers on the podcast. So your message is getting out. People are listening.
I hope so.
Thanks for your work, honestly.
Thank you
really
so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Yep. Oh, my goodness. I really appreciate it.